If you've been waiting patiently for a Toyota Kluger Hybrid or a Kia Sorento Hybrid, well, I've got news for you because Hyundai has now introduced a Santa Fe Hybrid, a 7 or 6-seater that is available now. Hyundai says they've got 400 models in stock in Australia, so you're going to have to be quick, but you should be able to get one pretty quickly. And the question of today's review is, should you? Is this hybrid 7-seat SUV worth considering? Let's get right into that now. Hyundai offers two grades of Santa Fe Hybrid, starting with the mid-spec Elite for 63 grand before on-road costs, and then this Highlander for 69,550 before on-road costs. Price to rivals being $200 cheaper than a Kia Sorento all-wheel drive hybrid and about 6 grand cheaper than a Toyota Kluger Hybrid. Jumping into the Hyundai Santa Fe's cabin and you're immediately greeted with how nice the materials are in this car. It really does a great job of standing out in this class. Yes, the Kia Sorento looks really good and high quality, but the colourful options available in the Santa Fe make it stand apart. This one is the Highlander and it gets camel leather as an option. You can get black if you so wish, but I think this camel leather really lifts the ambience of the interior. And that Napa leather upholstery is fitted to these lovely electrically adjustable seats. They've also got 3-stage heating and cooling and plenty of adjustment, including lumbar support and adjustable under-thigh support that kept me really comfortable for the 6.5 hours we spent in this Santa Fe yesterday. You've also got this suede headliner, which is a little thing, but it makes a big difference. It does suck away some of the light that you might get into the cabin, but at least you've got a panoramic sunroof when you want to open it, so you can get a little bit more light in. And it definitely pulls off the colors a little bit better than the Toyota Kluger, which has that slightly tasteless sort of brown and Werther's original color. This, I think, pulls it off much better. The technology package as well is really nice and high quality. It doesn't move the game on, but it works and it looks crisp. You've got a 10.25 inch touchscreen up here that is nicely integrated into the top of the dashboard. You've also got a 12.3 inch digital driver's display. Now, where the Santa Fe really differs from something like a Kia Sorento is the amount of buttons you have down here on the center console. It can be a little overwhelming, and I know some people I've heard really don't like the amount of buttons here, but I think it's something you get used to. The aircon screen itself may be housed in the infotainment touchscreen, but the controls for it, or the major controls, are all down here laid out nice and simply. You can adjust temperature, fan speed, auto, turn on driver only settings all down from here, and that just makes this car quite easy and simple to interact with. You've also got plenty of buttons on the steering wheel to interact with the customizable 12.3 inch digital driver's display that looks crisp and can show your speed. You've also got a pretty decent head-up display that is just visible in polarized sunglasses that are popular here in Australia. Let's move on to practicalities because the Santa Fe has some really nice touches. Starting with over here on the passenger side, you've got this little cubby here that has a rubberized bottom. That means you can put your phone or a notebook there and it won't slide around and it's easy access. It's a great touch and it's something we've seen on Toyota products for a while, and it's really nice to see Hyundai doing a similar thing. Other practicalities include this coverable little cup holder here. You've got a USB-A port, and that's for interfacing with the wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in this vehicle. A second cup holder here, and this really nifty wireless charging pad, which is vertical, which saves space, and I think it's a really good idea. It also means your phone doesn't rattle around. Now, if you have a really large smartphone, I've only got an iPhone 10, you might struggle to fit it in there, but for me, perfect. Also got some more storage underneath this armrest, and below the flying sort of buttress center console here, you've got a 12-volt socket and another USB charger, and a nice space to store handbags. Finally, the door bins are pretty decent, enough space for a 700ml bottle, but not the absolute best in class. So that's a brief overview of the Hyundai Santa Fe's interior. Yes, it looks really good and classy in Highlander, but dropping back down to the Elite level and saving about 6.5 grand doesn't feel like you've skimped entirely at all, so that's definitely something worth considering as well. Now, one thing that's really hard to miss about the backseat of this vehicle that we're sitting in right now are the captain's chairs. There's a couple of benefits to these, the main one being one, comfort, and the other being the fact that if you have children's seats, you can leave them set up here and your older kids can walk through to the back to the third row easily without having to fold the seats forward and faff around or make your kids jump in through the boot. That's a really great idea, and you can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments section down below. But back to the comfort thing, which is what I'm addressing right now, and I have to say these things are really sweet. They've got two-stage heating, the same fine Napa leather upholstery back here, and a fair bit of adjustment. You've got fore-aft slide, and you've also got backrest adjustment. That allows me to get super comfortable behind my driving position with plenty of legroom and a good amount of headroom and toe room as well. But it also means you can compromise a little bit. You can slide this forward so the kids don't have quite as much space in the middle row, so you can get more space for the kids in the third row. All great stuff that Hyundai has clearly thought about. As for amenities, you've got heaps back here as well. You've got air vents, cup holders, and a pair of USB-A charging ports to keep devices charged and children or adults hydrated in the back seat. You've got these sun blinds as well, which are a nice touch and so much better than crappy aftermarket ones that you have to stick onto the windscreen. Really great to have, and material quality in general is pretty good back here. You've got soft touch doors, again that nice leather here on the door cards. You do have a little bit of scratchy plastic as you do in the front seats, but it's pretty easy to ignore that for the amount of space and comfort and premium feeling in the back seat of the Santa Fe Hybrid. Hyundai reckons it's super easy to get into the third row when you've got the captain's chairs fitted to the Santa Fe. And you know what? Even though I'm fairly tall, for kids it'll be pretty easy. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's certainly a lot easier than having to wrangle baby capsules out of the second row and fold it down to get into the third row. Once you're back here, space on offer is pretty decent. The materials are also very nice. You've still got this lovely Alcantara headliner and this comfortable, lovely leather upholstery back here. You've also got niceties like a cup holder, a spot to store your phone, a USB-A charging port, and adjustable air vents. So back here is actually quite a comfortable place to be. Beneath the Highlander's power tailgate, you find that the Santa Fe's boot space is unchanged from its petrol or diesel counterparts at 571 litres of cargo space. That's because the battery for this vehicle is mounted underneath the driver's seat rather than underneath the boot floor. You do lose a little bit of underfloor storage, but this car still has its full-size spare wheel and tyre mounted underneath the vehicle, which is great peace of mind in Australia and shows that even though this hybrid SUV is really well suited to the city, it's not afraid to get a bit stuck in on the dirt. As for the rest of the boot quality, the Highlander gets this really nice high quality carpet and fairly nice feeling plastics, as well as a Harman Kardon subwoofer for the sound system. It's also got decent space with the third row in place, just enough for school bags or the shopping if you need to do the school run. However, it's not quite as spacious as a Toyota Kluger with all three rows in place, but still the Santa Fe is a little bit smaller and a bit more compact, and therefore even better for city living. One thing that really pervades the driving experience of the Santa Fe Hybrid is silence. This is a really quiet and refined powertrain. It may even be more so refined in this range-topping Highlander than the same powertrain is in the Kia Sorento Hybrid. But one thing's for sure, it's definitely quieter than the petrol V6 and also the 2.2 litre turbo diesel you can otherwise get in the Hyundai Santa Fe right now. As for outputs, it's also pretty decent. 169 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters of torque. Those come courtesy of a 1.6 turbo petrol inline four-cylinder engine and also a 44.2 kilowatt electric motor sandwiched between the engine and the transmission that gives this car a little bit of all-electric drive and of course that hybrid fuel efficiency. It also helps make that torque spread across a really broad range of application. It's available from 1,000 RPM all the way up to 4,500 RPM, giving the Santa Fe a really quite tractable feeling to it. It's also not that much heavier than the diesel, at only about 40 kilos more at about 1,980 kegs for this range-topping Highlander model. It's not overly crazy heavy when compared to the diesel, so it's all kind of working in this car's favour. The only thing is that it isn't actually that much more fuel efficient than the diesel, especially on the driving that we've been doing today. Hyundai subjected us to a whole host of fantastic country roads, dirt roads and everything, and it's really shown the Santa Fe up in a great light in terms of its chassis dynamics, ride comfort and poise on a great country road, but it hasn't shown up fuel efficiency quite so well. The claimed combined number for this car is 6 litres per 100 Ks, but today we've seen it closer to 8.7, 8.8 litres per 100 Ks when you're cruising on the freeway. And that's just because you're using the petrol engine a lot more, and this car isn't particularly fuel efficient, and today it's pretty windy. Still, where this car really excels is around town, where this big 7-seater should be able to get down to 6, even into the 5 litre per 100 Ks range if you've got a very light foot around town, and that's what this car is for. That's the buyer it's for. It's for someone who wants a petrol Santa Fe with all-wheel drive and with a fuel efficiency number that's not as bad as that 10 plus litres per 100 Ks you're going to get from the petrol engine. That's really the summation of the Santa Fe Hybrid's powertrain. Is it quite as refined as a Toyota Kluger Hybrid, one of this vehicle's main rivals? I don't think so. The electric motors themselves aren't quite as powerful as the Klugers, and the transitions aren't quite as seamless. But I'll tell you what, I would much rather prefer to hear this 1.6 litre turbo hooked up to the 6-speed auto rather than the 2.5 litre thrashy naturally aspirated engine hooked up to a CVT in the Kluger. So even though it's not going to be quite as efficient or as able to drive around town on electric only mode as the Kluger, it is actually interestingly more refined because the petrol engine just feels that class above. Now let's talk a little bit about what the Santa Fe has always been really good at, which is its comfort, ride dynamic and body control out on a country road, because this car strikes a really nice balance. It sits somewhere in between the Kia Sorento, which with its Australian suspension tune is probably a little bit too firm, especially around town, even though it's got excellent body control, and the Toyota Kluger, which is soft and comfortable and super plush in urban environments, but when you get it out on a good country road, it does definitely lose a little bit of body control to the Sorento. And the Santa Fe happily strikes a really nice balance. That's helped as well by this hybrid wearing 19-inch alloy wheels rather than the Highlander. Traditionally, the petrol and the diesel, they get 20-inch alloy wheels. So the 19s add that extra little bit of cushion to make this car really nice and serene on a back road. And trust me, we tested it pretty hard today, and this thing handled everything. Rough corrugations, scabby potholes, and really nasty dirt roads. It took it all in its stride, even though it's a 7-seat SUV designed really to work excellently in an urban environment. It works just as well when you get it out of the city. Speaking of performance and outputs, let's quickly take this thing from 0 to 100 Ks an hour. Obviously I've got a bit of steering lock on there, so it's not going to be perfect. 80, 90, there's 100. Now we toned this car independently in testing on a nice flat road, not at a perfect surface, but we got 8.7 seconds for the 0 to 100 K an hour sprint. Now Hyundai doesn't claim a time, but I reckon that's pretty decent. That matches what Toyota says their Kluger Hybrid will do. So yeah, 8.7 seconds, it definitely gets out of its way pretty decently. And finally, we come to safety. The Hyundai Santa Fe has a really excellent list of passive safety aids. Its ESC program is really nicely calibrated for Australian conditions, allowing you to get a little bit away with a bit of leeway without clamping down too firmly, but it is very well tuned to work on dirt roads. As for active safety gear, the Santa Fe naturally has a whole load of options, and coming only in Elite and Highlander trims, you get pretty much everything on the hybrid versions. In the Highlander, that means you get a 360 camera, adaptive cruise control, lane trace assist. You also get front AEB with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection, and you also get reverse AEB in this vehicle, as well as blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. So you have the full suite, and that's why this car scored 5 stars in ANCAP safety testing. There's also 7 airbags, including a center airbag in the middle. Should you go out and cancel your order for a Toyota Kluger Hybrid or Kia Sorento? I think there may be grounds to do so, because this Santa Fe Hybrid actually strikes a really nice balance between the soft plushness of that Kluger and the slight firm, excellent body control of that Sorento. It sits somewhere in between with that nice, efficient hybrid powertrain. If you're going to be driving on the roads that we drove on this car's launch though, I still think the diesel might be the better option. Its highway fuel consumption is better, but if you're here in the city like we are now, then the hybrid is going to be the best option because it cuts your fuel consumption around town, and really that's what this vehicle's all about. Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new Santa Fe Hybrid in the comments section down below. Do you think the pricing is competitive against its rivals, and is it something that you'd be considering? Let me know, and while you're there, leaving a comment, why not hit subscribe to the Wheels YouTube channel if you haven't done so already.